Hello, everybody. This is just a quick overview. It's not, actually probably not going to be too quick, probably 10 minutes, but it's going to be an overview of the IEP assignment for this particular class. Please note a couple quick things. One, you're using the case studies that were used as part of the SPINS assignment on, like, I think it was week 2. So that same one is Robert, Morgan, or Michael, I think, are the 3. So whichever one you pick for that, you could use your SPINS assignment as kind of a starting point for thinking about that, and also for the transition plan that's coming up next is the big assignment. All right, and number 2, this is actually in live text, and so the assignment is in live text. It's right here. If you go into the assignment itself, you got the rubric is down below, but the actual template, and then you have the instructions, which is this document over to the right, and you have the cases, 2 of them in here. There should be the third one too. You should be able to use Michael if you wish. So that's fine with me. Okay, so we're going to go back to the template itself, and we're going to kind of talk through it. There's one piece that you do not have to do for this assignment, and I'm going to point that out. It may cause a little confusion if you don't see this video, so I'll probably write this into an announcement too, just in case people don't see the video. All right, so first up, K-12 cover sheet. Once you've created your document, you might have to copy it using this little bit here, copy this document to create an editable document. So anyway, so once you're on this K-12 sheet, the first one, this is just the basic information. Whatever is not clearly stated that aligns directly to this from the case, make it up. As long as it makes sense, it's okay. So date of birth for the student, just make it work. School, if it's not listed, make a school. Age, grade, primary language of the student, pretty much all 3 of them are English. Primary classification, so what is their classification? Is it the diagnosis learning disabilities? Is it intellectual disabilities? Is it mild intellectual disabilities or moderate? Is it speech and hearing? Or what is it? What is the classification? Now, it's not asking for a secondary or further classifications for multiple disabilities, but if you think it deserves to be mentioned, feel free. IEP case manager will be you. All right, the present level performance is the second thing in here, and that's listed here. It's just basically the present levels, which is the present level of academic and functional performance now, is a multi-paragraph description of the student. It's the student's story. And so you're going to take the case information and rewrite it in a way that makes sense for you. And so the way I usually approach PLOPs, or present level of academic and functional performance, like a PLAF, if you want, but the way I approach that is start positive, end positive, and then you have some pretty clear information throughout that points to very objective and very easy to access information about the student. So remember that the people looking at this plot are special education professionals, but they're also general ed professionals who aren't familiar with assessment data, things like that. So if you're putting assessment data in, you need to describe it. You also need to make it so it's accessible for the student and the parents, because they're partners in this. They're not outsiders, they're partners. So you need to write it in a way that they also can access that information easily. So that's listed down in here too. All right, the next bit, goals and objectives, that is listed here. It just basically says complete all sections, and it should come right out of the plot, because the plot is kind of the brain of all this. It's going to dictate what you're going to be working on. And you should have at least 3 objectives for each goal. So the skill area is kind of a topical thing. It may be something like social skills or life skills or something, or maybe it's telling time or something like that. And then there's a goal. The goal is listed there, and it may be something like given an artificial clock and instructions, Randy will be able to tell the time represented on the clock to the minute 4 out of 5 times successfully, or something like that. And so that basically gives you a given situation. It might even say a time period by June of 2018. He'll be able to do this. You have a performance behavior, and then you have a criteria at the end saying what's successful. The objectives would then lead towards that goal. So the 3 objectives listed here would all be steps towards the goal. Think of it 2 ways. There's either steps up a ladder, like the first step might be he can do it 2 at a time successfully, then he can do it 3 at a time successfully, then he can do it 4 at a time successfully. Maybe that's what it is. Or maybe he can do it to the 15-minute mark, to the 10-minute mark, the 5-minute mark, and then eventually to the 1-minute mark, or something like that. The other way is to think of it as kind of like a pie, where you're filling in the pieces of a pie. Each of the pie pieces are not dependent upon one another. And so in my case, my example is not a good one for this, but something like laundry. if I do laundry, I might say he should be able to, one of the objectives might be being able to sort clothing. Another objective might be in measuring liquid. And a third objective may be running the machine itself. And so those three things aren't dependent upon each other, but they all make up, quote, doing laundry. So you have to figure out how your objectives are going to be organized in order to meet the goal. Set goal, there's 5 of them, 3 objectives in each goal. And so you're going to have a total of 15 objectives and 5 goals. Now, special education related services. There's 2 different aspects here, as the name says. It's special education and related services. Special ed is the core. So it's any program that's being offered to the student as prescribed because of their disability that is outside of the general curriculum. So it would be, or general programs. So it would be inclusion class, possibly, because that's numbers in a class, and you can't have you can only have a certain number in each class. So that would be equal to cash there, and that's a specialized program. But it also may be self-contained classes. So those 2 are the primary examples where you can think about it. There other examples may be like alternative physical education or things like that. Then the other one is related services, and that's behavior specialist, it's transition specialist, it's assistive technologist, and things like that. So, and occupational therapist, physical therapist. It's anybody who's an additional service being provided in order to help to deal with a particular disability is preventing the child from accessing learning. So that's the types of services, where it's located, how often it happens, how many times a week, when it starts, and how long is it going to go. So it's the beginning date would be maybe August of 2017, and it's going to last until May of 2018. You would actually give specific days. To be completely honest, I don't like this format because this is not the way that IEPs are written. So if you wanted to, and you can do it either way, if you wanted to, you could put it all up here in a chart or a table that basically shows the type of service, right to the right of it, the location on the next column, how often it happens, how many times a week, the beginning date, and the end date. That's usually the way you see it in an IEP. It's just a table with a list. How many should be in here? Probably a couple, at least 1 for sure. But if you think about the related services or the special ed services, the special ed services do include each one of the content areas that is a self-contained environment. So you may have a math self-contained classroom for intellectual disabilities. Then you may have a reading, language arts, writing type of classroom for that. And then you may even have a social skills classroom. So those are self-contained environments, and each one of those can be listed separately. All right, next one down is instructional modifications and accommodations. This one is interesting. It is it basically is either the adjustment that is being made to the type of work being done in the classroom, or it's the environment in which this is occurring. So it's the type of work or the environment. So it may be that the student sits close in the front of the class. It may be that the student has less problems to work through. It may be that the student has somebody reading the problems out to them. So it's all those things. So anything there. What's the number within a couple, 2 or 3, something like that, or more is what I would expect. Transition plan. This is the one you can skip. Some of you may feel the need to fill this in, but it's a skip. If you really feel the need to fill something in, you can put this at the top, the plot considerations, but honestly, that's going to show up in the transition plan itself. It's a shame they put this in here. I think it caused a little confusion, but I understand they wanted to connect the transition plan to the IEP. Participation in state and district assessments. So are the students participating in a standard administration? That may be a simple statement that basically says no accommodations, no modifications, standard implementation. And we're talking about state assessment. It's SOLs in Virginia. It's Common Core assessments in other states. So that's there. Modifications, accommodations. Whatever gets added here in the IEP gets used in classrooms and gets used in standardized assessments. By the way, a district assessment might be something like a standardized assessment like the Stanford 9, or like I guess it was probably up to Stanford 11 by now. But it's that type of assessment. Alternative assessment would be something like in Virginia, the Virginia Alternative Assessment Program, the VAP. The VGLA and the VSEP are on their way out, but that's VGLA, which is the Virginia Grade Level Assessment. The VSEP is the Standard Equivalency Assessment for high school is really what it is. And then there's also a VMAST, which is a computer-based system of assessment. So any of those might be okay. If the student is not participating in standards of learning, they're participating in an alternative assessment program. It's going to be one of those 2. This next one is to schedule reports to parents. So this one is, it just basically says, well, actually it doesn't say anything there, but you're basically going to put up a short plan. And let's call this a couple sentences that basically says, how are you going to communicate to parents? How often is it going to happen? And how is it going to happen? So maybe by email, maybe by phone call. You may have it on the quarter. You may have it every 2 weeks, whatever it is you think you need. It gets easier from here. Special factors. The following factors were considered when developing this IEP. This is actually just a statement, really. But if there's any of these factors plays a role, then you're going to want to highlight it in some way. You're going to want to write a sentence afterward that says this is what really needed to happen here. But I will tell you that most of the cases really have nothing in here. But these are here because of legal reasons, Supreme Court cases and such. That's the reason why these get listed. These factors are often before the present level of performance, is where they usually are in an IEP. The next one down is the age of majority. The age of a majority is 18 years old. So is the student going to actually reach the age of majority during that school year for that student? You don't need to do anything for this section at all, but that's really the question here, and it always gets asked in the IEP. Now there's the placement decision. Placement decision is often a paragraph, maybe 2, but it basically says description of placement and the time with general education peers. So in the case of Randy, then you may say, Randy will be taking self-contained classes in math, social studies, language arts, and science for all common academic areas. He will be with his general peers in physical education, in exploratory classes, lunch, and before and after school, and on the bus, and that sort of thing. So you basically are identifying what I could do. When the following accommodations and modifications are provided, and the following supports are going to be there, and here are the additional related services that are going to be provided for Randy because of his particular disability. So it's basically a list summary of everything in the IEP. And then there's this signature, which you need to do nothing with right there. So that's it. That's all there is to it. So you can see that it's a lot of pages with only a little bit of information. The plot will probably take you the longest just because it's several paragraphs. The rest of it, you just have to think through the objectives and goals. Once you get that, you're going to do the services, accommodations and modifications, and write a replacement decision, and then fill in a couple of blanks, and you're in good shape. So this is very much less than what you've had to do for the last 2 weeks. So enjoy the lightness of this one. Let me know if you have any questions.